This is All Things Fitness and Wellness, uniting industry thought leaders and fitfluencers on the mission to inspire innovation and encourage people to live a life fit and well. Brought to you by Fitness World, your fitness, your way. Visit fitnessworld.ca. If you've been to an industry course or conference this year, there's no doubt that artificial intelligence has been part of the conversation. This is no longer something that resides in the plot of a science fiction movie. This is happening in real time in the workplace. And when it comes to conversations around AI, there's often a lot of fear and trepidation, but at the same time, there is opportunity. And that is exactly what today's guest sees. NT Etuk is the founder of FitGrid and the co-founder of Boutique Fitness Solutions. In this episode, you'll learn about his fascinating career story and how a bout of plantar fasciitis and a lack of a brunch invitation resulted in propelling him into the fitness industry. NT is embracing artificial intelligence within his business and goes as far to say that it is the key to personalization within the fitness industry and beyond. Before we get to this week's episode, be sure to hit like and subscribe. We have new podcast episodes weekly featuring industry thought leaders and influencers. Plus, we're continuing our gym and wellness haven tours, which feature inspiring founder stories. I'm your host, Chrissy Van, and this is ATFW. Super happy to have you and super jealous because you're joining me from Cancun, NT.
Yes. But I hear the weather in Vancouver is great right now. So,
Yeah, I mean, you may be beating me on the palm tree ratio, but we'll let it slide for today. I'm really appreciative to have you though, because I know you have this incredible story because the fitness industry was not necessarily destination one. So let's start with young NT.
Oh my God.
I understand you had a real love of computers from a young age.
I did. I was, let's go all the way back, memory lane. I am originally from the Bahamas in Nigeria. So lots of pina coladas in my background, but my father's from Nigeria, mother's from the Bahamas. I spent my formative years, so the first 13 years of my life, back and forth between the two, but the most of the time I was in Nigeria, and I clearly had no friends because I ended up spending a lot of time with computers. I taught myself 6 programming languages by the time I was 11 years old, and I was building rudimentary video games. It was something where I had this love for computers, and it was the Apple with the monochrome monitors, at the time, and we had the Ataris and all of this, and I was just like, this is my world. So I'm going to hold you right there, because if we're living in Atari land, like, it's very easy to say now, oh, I taught myself this when I was a young kid. And there's going to be people listening that grew up on YouTube. And so learning any skill in the YouTube era is very easy. How did you teach it to yourself then? Because there's a lot more hoops when we were that age. Yes, it was this ancient technology called books, which we actually read, at the time, right? No, I used to buy myself like 300-page manuals on BASIC, Z-Basic, COBOL, assembly language, like all of these of C++, and then we had classes in school where we were actually coding it was a fascinating time. My parents would say, go to sleep, and I would, I'd pretend I was asleep, but I'd be there coding until 5 a.m. in the morning, that my sleepless nights started then.
And then you're like, the rest was history.
And the rest was history. How did the James Bond villain say? I think in Die Another Day, they're like, I hear you don't sleep. That's right, Mr. Bond. That way I'm forced to live my dreams. So, so there you go.
And you're like, now you have full throttle understanding of that quote.
Right.
So talk to me a little bit then about how that skill set developed and served you, because you had a very accomplished school career because of this, because you had this incredible knowledge base.
Yeah. So I came to the States. I went to boarding school, a school called Choate. And then I guess I did well enough there. I got into the computer engineering, electrical engineering program at Cornell. So I did that. My interest had always been in entrepreneurship. I'd always wanted to start my own company. In fact, the model at the time was Apple. I wanted to start the next Apple, and realized while I was in school learning about how to put computers together that I had actually followed the wrong Steve. There's Steve Jobs and there was Steve Wozniak. Steve Wozniak, he was the guy that knew how to build the computers and everything, and Steve Jobs was like the business wonder kind. And I realized that, it's more fun on the business side. So So I'm in the wrong school. So I never actually went and put my electrical engineering degree to work as an electrical engineer. But I came out into the business space, and the logic and the thinking that you had to go through as an engineer has certainly held me well as I came out into my first jobs outside.
And so then what was your career story with those first jobs? Because at this point now, fitness
Yep.
industry still not on the radar.
Still nowhere close to on the radar. Although when I was in Nigeria, I was winning a lot of the presidential fitness awards. So I was like the geek or the dork equivalent of like I don't know, like the scholar athlete, if you can say that at 11 years old, right? Like, oh yeah, you can do a tremendous number of push-ups and you can code in C. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Gold
Gold star.
That's right. Gold star for you.
Yeah.
So I came out, and actually the first place that I went in business was to a credit card company, believe it or not. At the time, credit card companies were doing very innovative things, particularly on matrices and direct mail response rates and all of that. So they had actually hired an executive from the airline industry. Because airline industries had figured out rewards programs and everything. So my first job out, I was in charge of a $100 million program that was focused on everything that we do now, which is what was the type of envelope that would get someone to open? What was the message inside, the APR, the interest rate that would get people to convert? We had massive spreadsheets where we were looking at the responses, to all of this, but it was actually what was physically happening. And we build a lot of that into what we do with what they call test control groups now with all the stuff that we do on the computer side. So that was my first job. I did that for a couple of years and then went back to business school at Columbia Business School. And during the Columbia Business School time, I decided to redo my college career and actually have fun, this time around. So we did that.
Good for you. That's important. You got to sow the wild oats.
It was important. But I went and I did that. And, I decided that I really need to have more exposure to business because engineering, I was in the lab all the time. I was just didn't have that. So I decided to work with a consulting firm, McKinsey, which is one of the biggest strategy consulting firms in the world. We did that during the summer. Quickly decided that was not, I wanted my hands more on the steering wheel than just consulting. And so I came out and was recruited to the R&D group of Citigroup to come up with the next billion-dollar ideas. And I also was not a citizen of the United States at the time. So I also needed them to help sponsor me and keep me inside the country. I was like, this is great. I went and I did that. And did that for about a year. We had some great ideas that came out of that group that I cannot talk about. But after about a year,
we're still early in the conversation. We'll crack.
That's right. No. That's right. Where are my pina coladas?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Order them up.
So I was pulled out of that group to work with the chief of staff to Citigroup's global president. And we were working right next to the global CEO. And they'd done that because they wanted to choose one sort of analyst. Citigroup at the time had a quarter million people, so 250,000 employees. I was fortunate enough to be chosen. They wanted someone to come up and sit in the C-suite and then to be able to go off and learn the different parts of the business. So I was on a fast track path towards, being at the top of one of the biggest. I think at the time, Citigroup was the biggest and the most profitable company in the world. And I stepped off that track. So I said, well, finance is great, but doesn't really float my boat. I'm really interested in things that give back to people. Right. And so I want to go off, and I'd been working on an idea since business school, educational video games. So my first company was an educational video game company. Do you know Halo?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, so I didn't do Halo, but imagine Halo. So this three-dimensional game where you have multiple people playing at the same time. Of course, there you're shooting aliens and all that. But, in my game, you were actually squirting like math problems and things like that, right? So it's a multiplayer game.
The toughest battle of all, let's be real.
That's exactly right. So these multi-user, multiplayer games where the kids get in 3rd through 9th grade and could learn math or literacy while they were playing these video games. And so we did that. We raised a lot of money, for that. I ran it for a number of years. And then I took a step back from that. And I was sort of looking around and saying, well, what's my next thing that I want to do? And at the time, I had plantar fasciitis, right? Which is this pain between the front and back of the feet. You know it.
I've got a few letter carriers in my life, so it's a
Yeah.
big male person problem.
Yes, it is. And if you run a lot or if you lift without stretching, I didn't realize that once you get past the age of 30, you're supposed to stretch. I didn't know any of that. So I wasn't
I'm
doing
joining you with a torn hamstring right now, actually, for exactly that reason.
very,
You should not
very,
hop into the splits when you don't stretch.
that
Life
is correct.
lessons.
That is correct. So I got this. I couldn't stand for more than 15 minutes. And I was like, this is terrible. So I went into the doctor. The doctor said, you have plantar fasciitis. And I was like, oh my God, what is that? And he was like, go to the PT, they'll sort you out. So I went to the PT, and they're literally sitting there like grinding your feet out and telling you to roll on golf balls and all that. I'm like, I never want to go through this again. But they also introduced me to group fitness. I'd previously been individual sports, group sports, so varsity volleyball, varsity taekwondo, so black belt in taekwondo, like all of this stuff, like real man stuff, right? And then I came and they're like, you should do yoga. And I was like, and you should do Pilates. And I was like, that sounds great. What is Pilates?
Yeah.
And I had no idea, right? So I went and I was like, I started doing group fitness, and the yoga, I think I did the wrong yoga. I didn't do the vinyasa. It felt too slow for me. I wasn't sweating enough, so I did the Pilates, and I was like, oh my God, this is like an hour worth of sit-ups. This is perfect for me. I was like sweating. I was like dying. I was like, this is great. I'm going to do this. And so I found this private Pilates instructor, and we did Pilates twice a week in my apartment. So did private sessions. And then after about 3 months, I was completely cured.
Incredible.
I could stand for more than 15 minutes. I was like, this is my next space. I want to pay forward what these folks have done for me. Along the way, she invited me into a group class. And I was like, okay, why would I do this? We're doing these private sessions in my apartment. She was like, well, it'd be great. You're being with other people. I was like, okay, when is it? She was like, Sunday. I was like, no way. I was like, where is it? She was like, Soho, all the way downtown in New York. It was like half an hour away. I was like, no way. I'm not going to do that. And I was like, what time is it? She's like, 9 a.m. I'm like, hell no. So Sunday, 9 a.m. in Soho, I am not going.
You're like, tough sell, tough sell.
Done. I was there the next week. And I was like, oh, wow. I actually followed my instructor. Let me note that. Very interesting. Walked into the room, and there were these three ladies who were sitting there. They put my mat down next to these three ladies. They were talking to each other. And they were talking about, are we going to do brunch after Pilates? And I'm a pretty friendly guy. So I was like, hey, my name's NT. Where are we going? What are we doing for brunch? They decidedly ignored me. I was not invited to brunch.
Oh.
But as I like to say, Zuck started Facebook. They say because he couldn't find any friends. I started FitGrid because I wasn't invited to brunch.
Perfect.
Right. Because
best
I was like,
brunch
wow.
uninvite ever.
That's right. So I learned, I was like, wow, people know each other here. 3 months later, I still know 70% of the people in the room. And I was like, this is group fitness. What's going on? I guess it's a group, but we're just doing it individually. Why was this last mile of connecting so hard? And so that became the thesis for what we were doing at FitGrid, which is that when you walk in, fitness is all about the people. We know this. When you walk into a class, you're more likely to go back to class, the more connected you are to the other people, the more connected you are to the instructor, or even the front desk person. They say, hey, Chrissy, good to see you again. If it feels like Cheers, if it feels like the place where everyone knows your name, you'll come back and you will invite 100%. Other people. Right. But nobody had created software that was all about community and all about the people, even though that is what the entire business model is based on. And so that was where FitGrid started.
Fitness World's 16 British Columbia high-value, low-cost gyms are committed to helping people reach their fitness goals, whatever those may be. Exercise and movement play a pivotal role in supporting people's overall health and wellness, and it is Fitness World's mission to provide the facilities, services, and amenities to help you achieve your fitness your way. Visit fitnessworld.ca for more information. That's incredible. You know what I really appreciate about all the interviews that I've done is exactly what you said when you had your aha moment of realizing what fitness brought to you and then wanting other people to experience that.
Right.
And I think that's what's so fun and special about this industry because we have such a connection to the passion that we truly believe in. Like, it keeps you so rooted in the goal. So FitGrid now, in recent times, going through a modern evolution, which should be no surprise considering you're at the helm here. We actually met each other at Boutique Fitness Solutions at URSA, and one of the biggest topics of conversation, of course, this year at URSA in general, has been about the advancements in AI. So talk to me a little bit about this entering your life and how long you had kind of been working with this technology.
Yeah, so here's what I'll say. If we take a step back and you look at what AI has shown itself to be good at and easily sort of applicable to, besides creating, videos of collaborations between Weeknd and Drake, right? Which we know that happened. And besides, doing summarizations of like War and Peace, right? The book. So besides that, I mean, I went on to ChatGPT just the other day and I was like, can you please summarize The Cat in the Hat for me, right? That was like, so I just want to give that to the kids.
That's awesome.
But besides that, so there are three general areas that we think about and that we talk about. The first is obviously you're seeing it with Microsoft. They've incorporated into search, right? How do you find the best place, the best solutions for whatever? The creation of messaging, which is what we specifically have started with, in terms of how we've integrated it with FitGrid. AI with FitGrid. And then the third piece of it is summarization. So, let's say that I had a million, there were a million reviews of, this class or whatever. We could summarize all of those reviews pretty easily because AI is good at absorbing a lot of information and spitting that out. So that's, we've been sort of thinking about that, for a while. ChatGPT really exploded the popularity of it and the use. So whereas before AI was something that was the stuff of science fiction, now you're in a place where the marketing of the power of this is being done by the average person who's going in and being like, oh my God, I just found the best social media title, for my post because I did it in ChatGPT. So now it's like, wow, okay, what else can AI do? And at the same time, people are sort of looking at it with a little bit of fear. They're like, does this mean a million jobs being lost? Like, what is happening to my industry? So there's a lot of interest in AI right now, both for good and for bad, which just means that there's more opportunity to help solve some of the problems that people have, even as we think about the biggest existential questions. So when we looked at it from a FitGrid perspective, let me give you our philosophy. We believe that traditional marketing is dead, right? And that community engagement, which is what we do, is actually the key. Now, what is community engagement? If you wanted to keep, if you had a studio, and honestly, this could extend to any business that's had a community, wellness business, Boys and Girls Club, whatever it happens to be. But if you have a community-based business, and you want your people to stay, then the traditional marketing approach would be send them a message that says, please stay. And that probably comes from the owner, manager, front desk person, you name it. Community engagement for us is that every single person in your community is activated towards getting that person to stay. So it could be the owner, the manager, the front desk person, whichever one is most relevant for them, sending a message that says, please stay. But it's also getting the instructor to give them a high five and say, please stay. And it's also about getting the other clients they're in class with to connect with them and say, please stay, because they now feel a part of the community. So if you can activate all of those people, right, then that becomes really powerful. And you see exponentially larger results in terms of revenue that you're driving, in terms of increased bonding and all that. Okay, so why is that relevant to AI? In order to build a community, in order to build those connections, you need to be personalized. You need to personalize your messages. I can't come to you, Chrissy, and just be like, yo, connect with me. You'd be like, who are you and why? Right?
Yeah.
Why
it's like getting
the
LinkedIn ones where there's no personalization. You're like, cool, another one in the inbox.
Another one. What does this mean for me? So what we've been able to do is we've been able to say, look, there's the studios have the ability, they're very busy, they don't know what to do. I go back, one of the other parts of my sort of founding story is that I went off and I started a pop-up studio. And as I was doing this pop-up studio, I walked in every day, I was just like, I thought I was kind of intelligent. I have an electrical engineering degree from Cornell, I have a business degree from Columbia. I was like, I should be able to figure this out. I walked in every single day anxious and frustrated and just pissed off because I was like, there are 20 problems with this business. Which one do I focus on first and how do I solve it? Right. So I understand all the studio owners' pain out there. One of the biggest issues that I had was I know that there's someone who I should be reaching out to and talking to today. I just know because they're about to leave. Or I should give the special treatment to this person over here. I just didn't know who it was. And there wasn't a way of surfacing that so I could give that personal treatment. So what we built into FitGrid was we said, all right, why don't we tell people who they should reach out to personally? We're going to look through your entire database. Here are the 30 people that you should reach out to today. Right? It's broken into categories. These are the folks who are converting, coming off their intro offers. Here are the folks that are milestone clients. Here are the folks that are at risk of leaving. Like break it into categories and say, this is who you should focus on and reach out to today. Okay, that was problem number one. We did that. And then what we did was we built a system and said, okay, now give the person information. The person who's writing this message, like the staff member, give them information, like the person's favorite instructor, other communications that have gone out, from the studio through the FitGrid system. Basic information about the client profile so they can craft a message. And we ended up creating this really dumb message, right? It was a template message. I know it was dumb because I wrote it, right? And it was basically like, hey, we haven't seen you in a while. Would love to see you again. Like that sort of thing. And the staff person could modify that message based on all the other data or information we provided to them. And you know what? They generally didn't modify it because we don't have time. Right. And because we are concerned about our own ability to craft great personalized messages. So I said, you know what? That's a great place to add AI. And so we did. And now what happens is you can go in as a staff person, whether it's the front desk, the manager, or the owner. We break you into segments. It looks at the segments and it says, okay, you are decreasing frequency. That means that, 2 months ago you came 10 times. Last month you came 2 times. We need to catch you. And so the goal would be get this person back in the studio, for example. And based on that goal, we have the AI create a message. And we have it absorb all of the information that we know about that person. So that client's profile and history, with the studio, and we insert that into the message. Right. And so all of a sudden, what was previously a 10-minute, 15-minute exercise is now 3 seconds. And you have a message that's personalized, which you can then regenerate, or you can choose a different tone. No, I don't want a friendly message. I want an urgent message or an enthusiastic or a supporting or encouraging message. I don't want to do this goal. I want to do a different goal. Right. And that is just step one. So I can say that as we roll this out, right now to the folks that end up using it, in our development labs, we already have step 5. And so you're going to continuously see this rolling out. And we see this as a massive save on time, save on money, and save on labor, frankly.
Well, and that's kind of going to be my follow-up there, because I know one of the biggest conversations that was had at BFS were the labor shortages, and everyone's still feeling the pain. So talk to me a little bit further about how this will help.
Yeah. So, I break the world into 2 types of studios. It's a simplistic view of the world. The AI implementation that we're talking about at FitGrid. If you look at the smaller studios, they may or may not have time to actually personalize messages. Now, there was a study by McKinsey that showed that if you can do great personalization, with your business, that you can just increase revenue 5 to 15%. The companies that do that well, right? So there is actually a reason for you to go in, and if you can send personalized messages, you will drive higher conversions. You will get more of your people coming back. Those lost clients will come back more often, right? So there's a reason to do that. But if you are the small studio owner where you're stretched, you've lost staff during COVID, you've probably gone back into teaching classes, so you're exhausted. The idea of actually sitting there and crafting 10-minute messages for each person, that becomes a real problem. So for that sort of person, they have 100, 200 people in their studio. I say, you don't have to hire a new person, or consider this like your sales assistant. It's doing this in seconds. Within a 2-week or 1-week time period, you can have gone through all of the people that we recommend that you reach out to, and even all the people that are currently going to your classes, crafted a message and sent it out. So that's a massive labor save for you. In the past, you would have had to have a person focusing on that. Now you can have your own sales assistant doing that. When I say sales assistant, it's not just that. It's like a marketer. Well, let's start with, it is an assistant that tells you who you should prioritize. Then it's like a marketer that tells you what you should say. It's like a copywriter and an editor because it actually crafts the message for you. And it inserts the data that you got on the background in there. And then over time, it gets better and better at understanding how to communicate and whether or not the goals are being achieved. So that's an analyst. So you have 4 roles that you probably never thought you would need in your studio that you've just been able to layer in. And that's on the small studio side. On the larger studio, they generally have processes for doing this. They have someone that does do this, but now you've just saved 10x the amount of time. And now they can focus on higher order thinking, sorts of things. They're actually going and shaking the hands of people and making real connection, as opposed to the rote aspects of, all of this, which they may or may not be doing a good job at anyway.
Well, and that's exactly it. I think everyone could flatter themselves and feel like we're the most brilliant at crafting X or Y, but anyone that has played with the AI technology that's available to the average user, it can really amp up your best ideas. Like, it's about finding this harmony. It's not like we're going to completely lose our humanization of things, but it's really about creating harmony with this technology, because I do encounter a lot of people that are very resistant, or the fear that you spoke to earlier, but they're going to get left behind. Like, what do you say to those that come up and have a lot of resistance toward embracing this technology? What's your overarching message?
Get on it as fast as you comfortably can, because your competitors are, right? And I think that this is such a revolutionary moment. Like, we have to, there are moments in history where you sort of say, oh, that's the internet. That's going to change. That's the telephone. That's the television. That's going to change everything. There's this something called the technology adoption curve. And we know that people generally have this. And so you have your early adopters, your innovators and early adopters. They're the ones who Apple puts out the next thing and they're buying it or they're getting it, no matter whether it has the bugs worked out or anything like that. So they're the early adopters. Then you sort of get into the mainstream and you get to like the laggards, right? Even if it makes you uncomfortable, move yourself out of the laggard category and into the place where you're at least playing with this and understanding it right now. Because as more and more of this technology comes into play, as people adopt it more and more, it's going to make such a massive difference in the speed with which you get new members, convert new members, all of that sort of stuff, that if you're a year or two behind this, you'll see your business dying off because other people are doing this and have embraced it a lot faster. So I do believe that this will be existential for some businesses because of the way that it completely changes everything. I was reading this article the other day about this guy with his business. He spends $2,000 a month on ChatGPT because it gives his people so much more time to do other things. So imagine that you are a small business owner and your competitor is spending $2,000 a month. So that gives his people on average 30 hours more per week that they can be doing, knocking you out of business. Figure yourself out and get on this. It's important.
It's the wisest advice. Before we let you go here, NT, we started this conversation about young you in the books, gaining all this knowledge. Now we live in this world where you're working on this AI technology. So I'm curious, what would you say to that young version of you? Because this is a world we couldn't have even envisioned at that point in time.
I would say the same thing that I lived by at the time. And, my first company was in the educational video game space. We had a lot of conversations where parents would come up to me and say, what is the one subject or what is the one thing that I can teach my kids? Right. And so I'd go back to myself and say, keep doing what you're doing. Well, what was I doing? What I was doing was I was teaching myself, and teach yourself and teach your kids to do this. Always be curious. If you have a question in your mind, go to Google and get the answer. Don't let those things pass you by, and train yourself to ask the questions and look up the answers. The reason why I say that is because inertia is real. We get to a place where We just get stuck and we get thinking about things the same way. And I've told anyone who comes into my company that the biggest skill that I look for is your ability to learn, because your job 2 years from now is going to be completely different. If you don't have that skill, then you're not going to be working here anymore. And it's the same thing for me as a CEO, right? If I don't reinvent myself, if I don't figure out how the world is changing, if I can't learn, then you're done. So to my young self, do what you've been doing and do it faster and do it more and do it better. And for those of us that aren't doing this enough, get on it, guys. Big deal.
Oh, NT, we're going to let you get back to the land of pina coladas, but I truly appreciate your time today. And congratulations on such an incredibly inspiring career story. I love people that stay so hungry, and that insatiable curiosity is clearly what has served you. So by you sharing this story, I'm sure it will reinvigorate the spark in some where maybe that appetite has dimmed. So thank you so much.
And thank you, Chrissy. You rock, you rock. Love the purple.
You've just listened to All Things Fitness and Wellness. This episode was brought to you by Fitness World. Your fitness, your way. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe so you never miss out on hearing from industry thought leaders and influencers. We are on a mission to help everyone live a life fit and well.